Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpendra Singh and we are going to start your NCRT classes. So today we are going to start with our the geography class or geography NCRT book. We have finished the few first two chapters of your A standard geography book. So today we are going to study further few more chapters today in the today's class. And this course is basically meant for those students who are preparing for the civil services examinations as well as other government competitive examinations. And certain examinations require you to answer certain basic questions related to general studies. So we are here for your preparation, and we are bringing you the NCRT based classes. Here you can basically enrich your knowledge. You can revise your NCRT books through these classes. So you can always refer these classes basically for your enhanced preparation, and it will guide you towards your path towards your success. All right. So here we are basically there for your current affairs, right? For your NCRT classes that we are basically covering one by one. So we have covered 6th and 7th standard NCRT books. Now we are started the NCRT book for class 8th, that is geography. So let's begin with the class. All right. Okay, so let's understand first the minerals and the power resources. Okay, so everybody knows about the minerals. Okay, so minerals are basically generally are found in the natural, right, or they are naturally occurring substances which are found in the nature, right? For example, you might have heard about that there is some mining or mining process, right, process or mining activities in your state also. For example, if you belongs to Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, there's very heavy mining activities going on over there. Okay, in the Rajasthan also, in the substantial belt, right? For example, in the Khetri and the Junjunu areas of Rajasthan where copper mining is very rampant. Okay, like that you have the Bela Dela mines, right? And as well as in certain places of Chhattisgarh and the Jharkhand, you have the iron ore minings, right? So these are basically the naturally occurring substances which are we generally call them minerals. Okay, these minerals are having definite chemical composition. Okay, so whatever the composition that you have, it will be have certain definite formula for that. Okay, so it will have definite composition for that. Okay, and the minerals are basically formed under different conditions. So you will have the varying conditions for the formation of minerals. Okay, so you will have different geological environment, geological formations for the formation of your minerals. Okay, and how would you identify those minerals which are found in certain places, say in Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, or some other place in Andhra Pradesh? So you can identify it based on their physical properties. Okay. So if you see the color, right, you will be able to distinguish the mineral from another minerals. Okay. You just see the density. Density means you have the weight per unit volume. Okay. Like that, you will be able to find what is the density of that particular mineral. So you can basically differentiate among the minerals based on the density also. Then hardness, how hard the substance is or how hard the mineral is, you can define, or you can define the mineral based on the hardness also. Apart from that, obviously you will have the most important characteristic, that is chemical property or chemical composition. So based on that also you can find out. Okay, for example, if any mineral can dissolve, or whether the mineral is not dissolving, or if it is dissolving, in what type of solvent it is dissolving. Okay, so you may have the universal solvent, or you may need basically a particular solvent to dissolve that particular mineral. So all such properties may characterize a particular mineral, and based on that property we can basically identify the mineral, that this mineral belongs to this category. All right, let's understand now. After understanding the basics of the mineral, let's understand the types of the mineral that we have found. Okay, so first of all, as I told you, that minerals are having a particular well defined chemical properties. Okay, so that means they will have a particular chemical composition for their formation. Okay, so on the basis of composition, you can basically define the minerals, or you can classify the minerals as a metallic or non-metallic types. So what is that metallic and non-metallic means? Obviously the metallic means, obviously the metal or the mineral will consisting of some metal, right? So their composition consisting of metals in the raw form, obviously in the raw form, where you will have ores, and from there you will read further the processing, where you will get basically the metal out of that ore. So here The metallic minerals are those compositions or those components, right, or those minerals where it contains a metal in the raw form, right? Obviously you can basically extract that metal from from your chemical preparedness. Then then based on that you can basically say, for example, if you have iron ore, right, everybody knows about iron. Bauxite, that is alumina, or that is a ore of alumina, so it consists of alumina. Okay, so it consists of aluminium. Okay, it consists of iron, right? Okay, so it is basically an iron, it is basically an ore of aluminium. So what do you say basically? The metals that you feel, for example, if you touch the metal iron, it is very hard, right? So that is why the metals are generally hard substances. Obviously if you pass through any heat or electricity, it can easily conduct through the metal. So metal is also a good conductor of heat and electricity. Okay, obviously when conduct the heat and electricity, both of them. And the metals will have certain shine or the luster also. So these are some of the chemical properties or the physical properties, right, which are generally characterize the metal from non-metals or differentiate the metals from the non-metals. Non-metals do not conduct the heat or electricity, right? And generally, and non-metal can be of the soft substances, or that may have the luster or may not have the luster. But these are some of the properties that the metals will be having. Okay, then again the metals are of two types. Okay, first is ferrous metals. Ferrous means those metals which consisting of the iron. Okay, these are all metals, we call them ferrous. Non-ferrous means, right, non iron. That means these metals do not consisting of the iron. Apart from that, it may consist of any other metal, but not the iron. So again you can divide basically the iron ore, right, as a ferrous metal or ferrous mineral metal, right, or a mineral. And bauxite can be of non-ferrous, right? So the ferrous minerals contain iron ore, manganese, and the chromites. Okay, this is the definition of how you differentiate basically ferrous minerals. So chiefly is consisting of the iron ore or iron. It may also consisting of the magnesium, manganese, or the chromites also. Okay, then non-ferrous minerals do not contain iron. So that is how you basically chiefly differentiate between the ferrous minerals and the non-ferrous minerals. But it may contain certain other metals, right? You may have, apart from the iron, you may have certain other metals also. For example, you have the gold. Okay, you have silver, that is Ag. You have copper, Cu. You have lead, Pb. Like that you have different different other metals which are basically also part of non-ferrous minerals. Okay, but it will not consisting of iron. Okay, and non-metallic minerals I do not contains metals, right? Non-metals means obviously they do not consisting of metals. For example, you can say limestone, mica, gypsum, coal, and petroleum, right? Everybody would have seen the coal also, petroleum also, gypsum also, right? People would have seen the mica and the limestone also. You might have seen these things in your in your household activities, right? So right, these all minerals do not contain basically metals, right? Then how would you basically extract the metals? Obviously you will extract the minerals from by digging some sort of mining like procedure. So you will have the mining first of all. Then you may also if, for example, if this is a surface, and this is you may have the open cast mining where you will basically mine top surface, where you will extract the mineral from just from the surface. You may have a deep cast mining also. Okay, where you have to dig, you have to drill, and then you have to extract. And then you may also form certain set of quarrying where you have certain other procedure of removal of your your minerals which are found deeper into the earth surface. Okay, the mining, basically the mining is the process of taking out minerals from the rocks which are buried under the earth surface. Okay, so that is what I said. For example, if your earth surface is this and if your metal lies over there, you have to drill and you have to reach there, right? This may have your deep cast mining or shaft mining. You may have to move, for example, if that geological formation is such that you have to move somewhere after reaching to the significant depth, you have to move to that direction also. So you might have seen this thing that you have to first move down and then move horizontally to find out, certain minerals. So you may have the process of the mining, which include the open cast mining and the shaft mining. So this type of mining basically is called the shaft type of mining. Okay. The deep wells are bored to take minerals out, and this process is called drilling. So like that, if you are, for example, if you are bringing the petroleum, right, you might have heard about the wells, or the petroleum wells. From there you will dig, and then you will basically have some pipes connections, then motors will be attached over there, and you will basically extract the crude oil from the from the basically deeper part of the earth, right? So here you will have the deeper wells, that will basically, you will have the mechanical motors, and from with the help of these motors you will basically extract those minerals. Okay. In the process of quarrying, right, the minerals are generally lie near the surface, and they are simply dug out. So quarrying means you are just simply having the minerals on the surface, and you will try to dug out, right, on the surface itself. All right. Then let's understand about the distribution of the minerals. This is very broader subject, and as you graduate basically in your higher classes, say 9th, 10th, probably in 11th and 12th also, for your Indian geography, you will be better able to understand the distribution of the minerals, especially, right, in the spatial characteristic. For example, where, in the Chhattisgarh, where in the Jharkhand, where in the Rajasthan you would find the minerals. So exact the spatial distribution of those minerals we will be learning in your higher classes. So generally you can say that the minerals are found, right, in all the three rocks. The first is called igneous, metamorphic, and the sedimentary rocks. I have given you the brief introduction about the igneous, metamorphic, and the sedimentary rocks also. Let's understand once again. The igneous rocks are those rocks which are formed out of the basically your magma, right? If it is formed inside the earth surface, you will call them intrusive. Intrusive means it is lie inside earth surface, lie inside the earth surface. Okay. Then if it is formed out of lava, lava means the magma which comes out on the surface, that is basically, we call them extrusive igneous rocks, that lie outside earth surface. So obviously igneous rocks are formed due to the magmatic conditions. Metamorphic rocks, the metamorphic rocks are formed due to you know high temperature and high pressure. Due to high temperature and the high pressure, the metamorphic rocks are generally found. These metamorphic means a changed form. So obviously the changed form required the high temperature and the high pressure to form. The sedimentary rocks, sediment means you will have sediments. These sediments are generally stratified means in the layered form. So the sediments would have deposited in the layered arrangement, and then over the millions of the years these sediments would have compressed, right, consolidated, and ultimately converted into the sedimentary rocks. Okay, we have studied all these rocks in detail in our previous lectures. Okay. The iron ore, nickel, copper minerals are found in the igneous rocks as well as in the metamorphic rocks. Okay, so these all are found basically in the igneous and the metamorphic rocks. The limestone is found in the sedimentary rocks also, right? Sedimentary rocks, because limestone is basically a sedimentary rock. Okay, now let's understand the uses of minerals. What are the uses of the minerals that we can use those minerals? So first of all, as I told you, that minerals are basically hard. For example, if you see the metallic minerals, they are very hard. For example, iron ore. Okay, so they are also used as a gem for making jewelries. Okay, so gems you might have seen also, they are basically also used for making the jewelry. Okay, then you might have also seen the gold, silver, etc. So they are basically used in the formation of jewelry. The copper is basically used in almost in every aspect. For example, you have the copper wiring also in your houses. You see this your the switchboard, where you will have the copper wiring. The copper is also used time immemorial for formation of the coins also. The copper is also used for the formation of pipes also. So copper has tremendous applications. Okay. Silicon is also used almost in everything, right? For example, formation of coins, pipes, and etc. And also certain other industrial aspect also. Okay, the silicon is very heavily used in the computer industries, that formation of chips and all sort of microprocessors, right? These silicon are basically obtained from the quartz, which is basically an ore, right? The aluminium basically is a metal, first of all. And aluminium, the ore is basically what we call, the aluminum is extracted from the ore, that is bauxite. Okay, from the bauxite the aluminum metal is extracted, and the aluminum is basically a light metal. Okay, it can easily be molded, right? And so that is the reason it is basically used in the automobile industries, in the airplanes also, because you need the lighter metals, right? So airplanes are best suited for that. Then bottling industries, right? Then building and the kitchen cookware also, you might have seen also in your handware and your cookware, which are consisting of the aluminum metal. So you will have the tremendous diverse utility applications of the mineral, of the metal like aluminum also. Okay, let's understand about the conservation of the minerals. So the pace the human beings are basically extracting the minerals, okay, that are basically unsustainable, because it is humans greed which makes the minerals deplete very fast. Okay, so because of that, the conservation of the minerals is very much essential. We must focus on the reusability of the minerals, we must focus on the recycling of the minerals, we must focus on the conservation of the minerals. Okay, because if those minerals are depleted once, for example, you have the petroleum, natural gas, obviously they are going to be deplete. Okay, because the pace we are extracting them, right? So it will take, huge time, like thousands of the years, millions of the years to formation of your petroleum, right? If we just take it out, that may basically, deplete completely. So the minerals are basically non-renewable resources. Non-renewable means you cannot renew the resources, right, as fast as it can. So it will basically once deplete, it will take, thousands of the year to form. So again, it is non-renewable. Okay, and so if they are not renewable, obviously we need to reduce the wastage. Okay, right? So the wastage in terms of industrial applications, also the wastage in the process of mining, also in the mining, also lot of wastage also occur in the minerals, so we need to reduce that wastage also. Okay, the recycling is the best way by which you can basically conserve your mineral resources, right? So in order to conserve, conserve your mineral resources, you need to recycle those minerals. So certain industries based on recycling also is promoting right now. Okay, power resources, right? The power resources already you know about, that can be of two types. The one is basically conventional, and the second is non-conventional. Okay, conventional means that, for example, petroleum, natural gas, they are conventionally used. Okay, and they are depleting very fast, they are exhausting very fast, right? And they are non-renewable also. The non-conventional resources basically are those resources, for example, you have the solar, you have wind, right? You have the waste to energy. Okay, so they are basically, are non-conventional resources which are not conventionally used, right, as a power generation, as a power resources. So the conventional and the non-conventional resources are the two resources or two types of power resources that are there. Okay, we need power resources, right, almost for everything. For example, for industrial application, for industrial work also, we need tremendous higher power. For agriculture also, we need basically power. All right, then for transport also we need power. For example, in Delhi you have the CNG. Okay, then it is basically compressed natural gas, again is a resource, right? Then communication, you need the resources. You need the defense, for the defense also you need the resources. Okay, so power resources are needed for everything, for human sustenance, for defense, for security, for agriculture, for industrial purpose, right? It requires certain resources also. The conventional sources of minerals, the conventional means they are basically energy sources, right, which are conventionally used. That means which have been in the common use for the longer period of the time. Okay, so we are using them, right, as a common, right, for the longer period of the time. So that is why we call them conventional resources. That is why we call them conventional resources. So they have been used commonly, right? For example, the firewood fossil fuels में आपके petroleums आ जाएंगे, the your natural gas, right, crude oil, all such things are basically conventional energy resources that have been traditionally used, commonly used. Okay, non-conventional energy resources of the minerals, that basically you can say they are renewable. As I told you previously also, the non-conventionals are basically renewable, where you can renew them. Okay, they are not exhaustible. For example, solar energy, you will get daily solar energy, right? Wind energy, okay, you will have the windmills, wind farms. Tidal energy, you can basically use tides as a basically source for generating electricity, right? They are some of the example of non-conventional source of energy which are not commonly used, right, which are not commonly used for the longer period of the time. Now because of the environmental changes, because of climatic changes, right, we are basically promoting the non-conventional sources of the energy, right, through which we can basically safeguard our environment, we can safeguard our climatic changes that is adversely impacting us, right, in every form. It is all because of the anthropogenic regions and the human induced regions. So we need to promote that type of development which is more suitable to the human being, right? So for that, because we have already disturbed this environmental conditions, so we need to safeguard it further, right? And we need basically sustainable form of development in every aspect. All right, then agriculture basically agriculture is also an economic activity first of all. Okay, then the economic activities you can basically can be differentiated or can be divided into three types. The first is called primary activities. I will come to that, what is primary. Then secondary activities and the tertiary activities. Obviously you may have the quaternary, quinary, and like that other activities. So but primarily in your this class or your 8th standard, we are mainly focusing on the primary, secondary, and the tertiary activities. All right, so let's understand one by one what is primary activities, what is secondary activities, and what is tertiary activities. Okay, so let's understand first of all primary activities. So primary activities, that means are those activities where they are primarily connected with, right, with the extraction. For example, you may have the mining, right? The mining is a primary activity that is involving extraction of the ore, the production of natural resources, obviously, right? Not production of something industrial output, but it is a natural resources, mind it. Okay, so natural resources, that means you will have crops. That means the agriculture also is involved as a primary activity. So agricultural production of the natural resources, extraction, you are extracting the fishes from the oceans, right? You are catching the fishes. So the agriculture and the fishing, mining, right, they are all involved as a primary activities. Their main concern is extraction and the production of the natural resources. Okay, let's understand secondary activities. Secondary activities means you are something manufacturing out of certain raw materials. So you are basically processing the natural resources. Okay, you are processing the natural resources or some raw material ultimately to manufacture certain products, right? So the manufacturing, if you are manufacturing certain products, that is involving in the secondary activities. For example, you may have the baking of bread, weaving, clothing, right? Obviously you are using the natural thread or maybe artificial thread. You are basically taking off wheat as a flour, wheat flour, and basically you are making baking of the bread, right? So all such activities, right? Here you will have also all activities which are related to the industries, right, which are related to the industry. So industrial work is also comes under the secondary activities. Let's understand about tertiary activities. The tertiary activities means you will have the services, right? So you will provide various types of services. For example, the transport services, the trade services, the banking services, the insurance services, the advertising services. So all services comes as a part of your tertiary activities. So basically tertiary activities are those activities which are part of your services. So as I told you, the agriculture where you will have the production of natural resources is basically your primary activity, which include the growing of the crops. Obviously you are producing the natural resources. Growing of natural resources also include the fruits, vegetables, flowers. Rearing of the livestock also comes under there are primary activities. So because agriculture and light sector basically comes under the primary activities. Okay. And regarding the support which provided by the agriculture, so here you must understand that the agriculture basically consisting of the 50% of the persons are engaged in the agricultural activity. In our country also, almost 53 percentage of the people are still dependent on the agriculture for their employment purpose, right, for their sustenance. So almost 50% of the world population are engaged in the agricultural activity. Okay. Even two-thirds of the India's population is still dependent on the agriculture for their sustenance purpose. Okay. Now the agricultural activity require, obviously the soil. If the soil is fertile enough, if the soil is good in terms of nutrients, obviously, you know uh, it will be beneficial for the farmers to produce their productivity, and the production will also go up. It will dependent on the topography. For example, in the hilly areas, they are not suitable for the agriculture or for the aeration purpose, right? You need basically terrace farming, right? For that, you basically make the terraces over there, and you will basically cultivate over this, so you will have the terrace farming. Okay. So the hilly areas are not suitable. For example, if you have the plainer areas, obviously the plainer areas are mostly used for agricultural activities, provided these plainer areas are basically the plains of any river, or for example, you have the Gangetic plains, you have the Brahmaputra plains, you have the Indus plains. So they are formed out of the river and their tributaries, right? Obviously they are they are fertile because they have, every year the river brought lot of silt, alluvium, right, every year, and that has basically increases the fertility of that soil. The climate is most important. For example, if you have the harsh climate, okay, like tundra, where it is not possible to cultivate any type of crops. Even if you go to Ladakh, Leh, right, the climate is very harsh. It is almost the drier conditions, but it is cold drier condition. Sometimes we call them, it is a cold desert also, right? So climate is not favorable for agricultural activities. But if you come to the plainer areas in the northern India, the climate is favorable, okay, where lot of different crops have been grown, right? So climate is also most important for the agricultural activity. Okay. And the land on which we grow the crops are called arable land. Arable land ka matlab hota hai, right, the proportion of the land which is basically used for growing up of your crops, right? So it is basically known as arable land. Okay. Let's understand about the farm systems. Okay. So first of all, the farming or the agriculture we call is a system, right, which requires certain inputs. Okay. So what are the inputs required for the agriculture? For example, you need the seeds, right? You need the seeds, right, for initially sowing purpose. You need the fertilizer to sustain the farm, to sustain basically your crops, right, to grow the crops, to recoup the fertility of the soil if the soil is not fertile enough, right? Because you need, for example, nitrogenous fertilizers, right, phosphatic fertilizers, right? If the soil is deficient in terms of those fertilizers, obviously you need to artificially provide those fertilizers to the soil. Okay. Then you need the machinery, right? For example, you have tractors, right, mechanical, right, right, winnowing facility where you will basically basically cultivate your crops. And then obviously labor. Without labor you cannot farm, right? If your farm size is big and you don't have the human resources, obviously you need the manpower, and for that you need to hire the labor also, right, for your agricultural purpose. Okay. Now some of the operations which are generally conducted in the basically in the farming, for example, plowing, right, for sowing purpose, for irrigation, weeding, and harvesting. These are some of the operations which are performed, right? And it will basically helpful in terms of your production and the productivity of agriculture. Okay. And the output from the system that we got it, the in terms of crops. So you will have the production of different type of crops. Obviously you will have the dairy product. For example, if the land is also devoted, right? For example, if you have the agriculture and allied activities where you will have, the animal husbandry activities, where you will have the dairy system, right, where animals are basically reared for, for their milk products, for their wool, right, for their meat, right. And you will have also the poultry products also, right, where the chicks are basically reared for their, for the meat, and also all sort of the things. So output from the system is also, remunerative to those farmers which involve in the production of these activities. Okay, let's understand the types of the farming. So as I told you, the farming basically depends on the geographical conditions. For example, if the geographical conditions are favorable, right, for example, if the topography is favorable, right, the climate is favorable, the temperature is favorable, because all such, conditions, the temperature, the climate, isn't it, the pressure, right, and also geographical condition, the soil fertility, they are all very important for, the farming practices. Okay, then obviously, the demand for the produce. For example, if there is no demand for any particular produce, right, why will the farmer will grow that? So obviously the demand is most important aspect of the farming. If there is a huge demand, right, if there is a high remuneration from the farming, right, from the particular crop, the farmers would definitely devote a piece of the land for the production of that particular produce. Obviously the farming also dependent on the labor and the level of technology. For example, in USA there is big farms. Okay, so you will have the extensive farming, okay, which are also known as commercial farming, right? So where the farmers are basically devote themselves, right, for, cultivation of the big farms, right? So you will basically use the extensive machinery, right, high amount of fertilizers, weedicides, insecticides, right, and everything is on mechanical, right? The machines are, used for the production of the crops. Okay, high amount of, or the inputs are very heavily or very highly used. But in the subsistence farming, the subsistence farming means the commercial farming having another aspect of export also. So the commercial farming is generally done for the export of, certain the products that you basically produce in the farms. So you will basically export oriented in terms of your commercial farming. But in the subsistence farming, right, the main aspect is not export. Okay, so you basically, do not export the produce that you produce, but generally the subsistence farming will be used for your consumption purpose, right, for your consumption purpose. So you will basically use the subsistence farming for your consumption related activities, right, not for the purpose of your, for your export. And here the manual labor is generally used. Okay, here you will have the all sort of a, the mechanical instruments are used. And here, the per unit, the basically what you put the manual or, productivity per, per unit of labor is very low. But here the productivity per unit of labor is very high, right? So these are some of the difference between your subsistence farming and your commercial farming. Okay, all right. So subsistence farming, as I told you, the subsistence farming basically, you know is a farming where, generally we use for the meeting of the farmer's family need, right? So here you will basically use the farming for meeting the, the needs of the farmers, but it does not involve the aspect of export. The intensive subsistence farming, right? Intensive means you are basically, you will have the small, piece of the land, okay? And generally in India, because we have a lot of small and marginal farmers, so the small farmers generally have less than 2 hectares of the land, right? Or even less than 1 hectare of the land, right? If those farmers are there, they will cultivate on the small piece of the land, right? Obviously they are very poor, so they will use very simple tools for the production activities, right? And they will try to use maximum labor because they are not having the jobs with them, so they will generally use all their labor that they have. For example, if there are 8 members in the family, all 8 members are involved in basically in the intensive subsistence agriculture. Obviously simple tools is basically is because of compulsion and because of they don't have effort for that, and obviously the mechanization is also not possible for the simple, for the small piece of land. And the rice is basically main crop which is basically used as an intensive subsistence farming. Other types of crops basically wheat, maize, pulses and all seeds. And you must also understand that in subsistence farming is something which is not used for the export of the commodities, but it is only for feeding purpose, for satisfying the needs of the farmer's family. It is not used for the export purpose. The primitive subsistence agriculture, primitive means you are basically certain very age old practices where you basically have the traditional tools. For example, you may have heard about the shifting cultivation or the jhum cultivation, where certain tribal areas in the tribes basically they cut down the forest, they burn the forest, they use that ash for the fertility enhancement, okay? And then they cultivate on the piece of the land for next 2 to 3 years, and they abandon this land for and they move to the new land, and basically they again cut it down the new land, burn down, slashes down, and then again they cultivate on that piece of the land for next 3 to 4 years, and then they abandon the land and they move to the new place. So that is also called slash and the burn agriculture, or shifting agriculture. That is also called zooming. It is very heavily used in the tribal areas. Then you have nomadic herdings also. Nomadic means the people which basically migrate, and they are involved in some of herdings. Means you will have the animals, so they basically move with the help of those animals. So they basically continue to move with the animals that they have. Shifting cultivation, I have given you the definition of the shifting cultivation. So shifting cultivation means very simple. You go, right, you clear the land by burning, then you use that ash for enhancement of your productivity or your fertility, right? You cultivate on that land, and then you abandon that land after 3 to 4 years, and then you move to the new land, right, where again you will cultivate on the new piece of the land by cutting down, by burning down, right? This shifting cultivation is also known as slash and the burn agriculture also, okay? Nomadic herding, as I told you, nomadic herding means you will have the herd man, right? So you will have a group of the men which is basically they move from place to place. Obviously the herding involved in certain aspect of animals, so they will have animals with them, right? So they move from one place to another place with their animals for water, for fodder, right? On the different routes, right? These type of nomadic herdings, right, are very famous in certain high reaches of the Himalayas, right, as well as in the tribal area. So you will have the sheep, yaks, goats, which are used as the herding animals by those animals, or by those people. Then you have the commercial farming. So commercial farming, the most important aspect of the commercial farming is the crops are grown for the purpose of the benefit, or for the purpose of some economic return, right? So here the crops are grown, right, which are basically having aspect of, right, to get the benefit, right, to get the profit out of it. So it is called commercial farming. So the commercial farming, where the mostly used in the certain western countries, right? So they are grown, animals are reared, right, for the selling of in the market or for the exportation purpose, okay? Then you have commercial grain farming. Commercial grain farming means, obviously commercial aspect means you will have the aspect of export, or you will have the aspect of the selling of that produce in the market. Okay, so you will have certain crops will be grown, right? Just like you can say the wheat and the maize, right? In the commercial aspect, right, for the purpose of commercial purpose or for the purpose of profit motive. Okay, and these are very heavily practiced on the temperate grasslands, right? For example, you may have prairies in the Northern America, then you have Europe and the Asia where the temperate grasslands are there. These temperate grasslands have been, extensively cleared. Okay, right, which were previously used for the grazing purpose. Now these temperate grasslands have been used for basically commercial grain farming. Okay, then mixed farming. Mixed farming का मतलब होता है on the same piece of the land, you use basically the piece of the land for growing of food, for growing of fodder crops, and as well as for rearing of livestock also. So that means in the mixed farming, you basically cultivate the crop, you basically grow your fodder crops, and also you rear the livestock also. All right. Then plantation. A plantation is a type of commercial farming where, right, you generally produce a one single crop. For example, you have the tea cultivation, you have coffee cultivation, you have the sugarcane cultivation, you have the cashew, rubber, banana, cotton. They are all plantation activities. That means obviously it is also a commercial farming because you are producing them for the purpose of export, so it involves certain set of aspect of export here. Okay, the major crops they basically use, the major crops means they are generally used for the growth, for the growing purpose, to meet the requirement of the people. Obviously you need, to feed billions of the people that are basically there throughout the world. So to meet the needs of the people, you grow certain crops that are called major crops. For example, if you take an example of India, the major crops consisting of rice because of fooding habits, the wheats, millets, maize, cotton, jute, coffee, tea, they are all major crops because they are almost used by every section of the population for fulfilling their need. The agricultural development, right, what we call the agricultural development, the development, that type of development which basically, increases the value of the agriculture, or which increases the farm production, right? Why the agricultural development is important, right? Obviously to meet the demand of the increasing population. So you need to fulfill the demand of the increasing population, right? And for that you are having the agricultural development. Okay, a farm in India, right? Typically the farm basically, is about 1.5 hectares because it's a small, the small and the marginal farmers. Okay, and in India also, because of effort of, right, the high yielding varieties of the seeds are also used, right, which is basically also grown for the high productivity of the crops. Okay, a farm in USA, for example, you say the average size of the farms in the US is basically 250 hectares, but you see the average farms in India is very, very low. So there in the USA, basically we generally have the commercial aspect. So you will have the extensive agriculture, you will have the commercial agriculture, but in India you will have the intensive agriculture, which basically we use. All right. So thank you very much for attending this class. We'll meet again tomorrow for our next class. Thank you very much.